Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something right now. Average is the enemy of greatness. Average is the silent killer of dreams. Average is the slow death of potential. And I refuse to be average. Say it with me. I am not average. You weren't born to blend in. You weren't born to be a carbon copy of the crowd. You weren't born to simply exist. You were born to lead, to create, to expand, to explode with possibility. Somewhere inside of you is a fire, and that fire does not burn for good enough. That fire does not settle for just okay. That fire is screaming for more, demanding that you stop shrinking and start claiming the life you were built for. The world loves to train you to be average. School teaches you to memorize, not to innovate. Society tells you to follow, not to lead. Family and friends sometimes project their own fears on you and say, don't dream too big. Don't take that risk. Stay safe. Safe. Safe is the prison where most people die with their music still inside them. Safe is the excuse that robs you of greatness. Safe is where average lives, and I don't live there anymore. I am not average. I will not eat like the average, sleep like the average, think like the average, or work like the average. If average people give up after one setback, I will rise after 10. If average people get discouraged, I will get determined. If average people stop at comfort, I will sprint into discomfort because I know that discomfort is the birthplace of transformation. Look around you. Every breakthrough in history came from people who refused to be average. The inventors, the creators, the leaders, the visionaries, they didn't wait for permission. They didn't care about fitting in. They burned the rule book. They carved their own path and they made the world adjust to their vision. That same spirit lives inside you, but you've got to wake it up. You've got to declare war on average. So today, make a decision. Not tomorrow, not someday. Today, decide that you are done settling. Decide that average will never again be your label. Decide that you will train your body, your mind, your soul to operate at a higher level. You will raise your standards. You will demand more from yourself than anyone else dares to expect, and you will not back down until your reality matches your vision. Repeat it again, I am not average. Feel the power in those words. Say it like your future depends on it, because it does. When you walk out of this room, when you go back into your life, you carry this identity with you. Every action, every choice, every step is filtered through this truth. You are not average. You are extraordinary. You are limitless. You are unstoppable. And when the world tries to push you back into the box of mediocrity, you stand tall, you roar with certainty, and you remind yourself of the truth. I am not average. I never was, and I never will be. Average is the enemy of greatness because the moment you accept average, you accept a life that is less than what you're capable of. Every human being has seeds of potential inside them, but potential means nothing if it is buried under the soil of mediocrity. The truth is, people love the comfort of average because it feels safe, it feels predictable. It doesn't require much risk, but safe is where dreams go to die. Safe is the invisible cage that holds you back from discovering what you are truly capable of. The people who live extraordinary lives aren't more special than you. They don't have more hours in the day. They don't have some magic advantage. They simply made a decision that average was not going to define them. Greatness requires a different standard, a higher demand, a refusal to settle for what most people are willing to tolerate. Average is easy, but greatness is earned, and that is why so few people ever taste it. Think about it. Average people wake up, hit the snooze button, go through the motions, complain about what they don't have, and end the day no closer to their dreams than when they started. Greatness requires a mindset shift where every moment counts, where every action is aligned with purpose, where every choice moves you closer to the life you were meant to live. Average accepts the excuses, too tired, too busy, too hard, while greatness finds a way. Average gets trapped in comfort zones, but greatness thrives in discomfort. Average is reactive, always waiting for things to happen, while greatness is proactive, creating opportunities, building momentum, and demanding progress. When you accept average, you trade in your uniqueness for conformity. You are not designed to be a copy of everyone else. You were designed to lead, to grow, to evolve, to expand. There is no fulfillment in blending into the background, in shrinking so others feel comfortable, in keeping your gifts locked away because you fear judgment. Greatness requires courage, the courage to be misunderstood, the courage to be criticized, the courage to stand alone if necessary. Average is crowded because most people choose it. Greatness is rare because few are willing to pay the price. But that price, the discipline, the sacrifice, the hunger is exactly what makes greatness worth it. Every time you choose average, you teach your mind to lower its standard. You send a signal to your body, your soul, your spirit that mediocrity is acceptable. And over time, it becomes a habit, a pattern, a way of living that feels normal. But what is normal is not always right. What is common is not always correct. If you want greatness, you must disrupt the pattern, raise your standards, and declare that average will no longer have a seat at your table. This is about identity. You cannot achieve greatness with the mindset of average. You cannot become exceptional while living like everyone else. The first step is to decide who you are. Are you someone who settles or someone who demands more? Are you someone who lets life happen to you or someone who makes life happen for you? That decision changes everything. History proves this truth over and over again. Look at the people who left a mark on this world. None of them were average thinkers. None of them were average doers. None of them were satisfied with the way things were. They looked at the ordinary and asked, what if? They looked at the impossible and said, why not? They looked at their own limitations and refused to bow to them. Greatness is not about perfection. It's about persistence. It's about waking up every day with a standard that is higher than yesterday. It's about refusing to settle for excuses and pushing through when average would quit. Average gives you temporary comfort, but long-term regret. Greatness gives you temporary struggle, but long-term fulfillment. Average may feel easier in the moment, but the weight of unrealized potential will crush you over a lifetime. Greatness requires more in the moment, but the rewards last for generations. That's the choice. Every day you are given two options, the easy road of average or the hard road of greatness. And every day your future self is shaped by the road you choose. Greatness is not a gift given to a select few. It is a decision available to everyone. But only those who refuse average will experience it. You have to burn the bridges of mediocrity, destroy the excuses, and commit to raising the bar in every area of your life. Average will tempt you because it's familiar, but familiarity is not freedom. Freedom is found in breaking through your limits, in living with passion, in becoming the person you know you are meant to be. You will never discover your highest self if you choose to settle for average. You were born with fire inside you, not to blend in, but to stand out, not to hide, but to shine. Not to live quietly in the shadows, but to create an impact that echoes beyond your own life. That fire is your gift, your drive, your spirit that pushes you to want more, to do more, to be more. But most people are taught to dim that fire, to put it out in order to fit in, to conform, to live safely within the walls that society has built around them. From a young age, you are told to sit down, be quiet, do what everyone else is doing, follow the rules, don't dream too big, don't reach too far, don't step out of line. And little by little, that fire inside you gets smothered by the wet blanket of mediocrity until one day you forget it was even there. But the truth is it never leaves. It just waits for you to remember who you are. When you blend in, you rob the world of the unique power you were given. There has never been another you, and there will never be another you. You carry a combination of gifts, talents, and perspectives that no one else on this planet has. And yet the pull of average is strong because fitting in feels comfortable, because it keeps you from standing out, from being judged, from being misunderstood. But the cost of blending in is that you lose yourself in the process. The cost of trying to be like everyone else is that you never discover what you are truly capable of. You were not born to walk in someone else's footprints. You were born to create your own path, to set a new standard, to ignite something different in the world. That fire inside of you is not meant to be caged. It is meant to burn, to expand, to inspire. But fire requires fuel, and the fuel of your fire is courage. Courage to take risks when others play it safe. Courage to speak your truth when others remain silent. Courage to rise again when you fall flat on your face. Courage to say, I am different, and that's exactly why I matter. When you step into that courage, you stop asking for permission to exist. You stop begging the world to accept you, and you start creating a life that is undeniable. People may criticize you, they may laugh, they may doubt, but deep down they are only seeing in you the reflection of the fire they buried in themselves. The fire inside you was not given to you just for your own sake. It was given to you so you could light the way for others. The world does not need more copies, it needs originals. It does not need more safe players, it needs risk takers. It does not need more silence, it needs voices that cut through the noise with truth and authenticity. When you embrace your fire, when you stand tall in who you are, you give others permission to do the same. Your courage becomes contagious, your energy becomes magnetic. Your life becomes a spark that ignites something bigger than yourself. Standing out is not about ego, it's about purpose. It's about using what you have been given in a way that creates value. It's about leaving the world better because you chose not to hide. Blending in serves no one. Standing out is where you find your true calling. When you stop living for approval and start living from alignment with your deepest values, everything changes. You no longer move with hesitation, you move with certainty. You no longer question your worth, you embody it. You no longer chase validation, you create impact. The fire inside you is your compass. It tells you when you're on the right path, when you're living authentically, when you're aligned with your true self. But you have to be willing to listen, to trust it, to follow it even when the world around you says you're crazy. Every great leader, every visionary, every creator who ever changed the course of history had to make the choice to trust that fire, to believe in it, even when nobody else did. They stood out not because it was easy, but because it was necessary. They didn't wait for the crowd to cheer them on. They moved forward even when the crowd tried to pull them back. Inside you is that same potential, that same power, that same fire. You don't need permission to stand out. You don't need the world to agree with you. You don't need to have it all figured out before you start. You just need to make the decision that you will no longer hide who you are. You need to decide that your fire is worth protecting, worth feeding, worth unleashing, because once you do, nothing can stop you. Challenges will come, setbacks will happen, but fire is resilient. Fire spreads. Fire transforms everything it touches. And when you choose to stand out, you become unstoppable because you are living in alignment with who you were always meant to be. Discomfort is where transformation happens because nothing grows in the comfort zone. Comfort feels good, it feels safe, it feels familiar, but it never stretches you into who you are capable of becoming. Think about it. Every great moment of growth in your life came from a season where you were uncomfortable, where you didn't know if you could handle it, where you were stretched beyond your limits. Discomfort is the gym for your mind, body, and spirit. It is the resistance that builds your strength. It is the pressure that turns coal into diamonds. Most people spend their lives running from discomfort, avoiding it, numbing it, trying to build a life where they never have to feel it. But what they don't realize is that by avoiding discomfort, they are also avoiding growth, avoiding power, avoiding the very transformation that could take them to the next level. The human spirit is not designed to stay stagnant. It is designed to evolve, to push forward, to expand. But expansion requires tension. You cannot lift yourself higher without resistance. You cannot discover your true strength without first facing the weight that challenges it. Discomfort is not your enemy. It is your teacher. It shows you where you are weak so you can build strength. It shows you where you are limited so you can expand. It shows you where you are afraid so you can find courage. Every breakthrough in your life will be on the other side of discomfort. That's the law of growth. Most people misunderstand discomfort. They think it's a signal to stop, when in reality, it's a signal that they are moving in the right direction. Growth is uncomfortable. Change is uncomfortable. Becoming more than you are today is uncomfortable. If you feel uncomfortable, it means you are stretching beyond what is familiar. It means you are challenging the old patterns, the old identity, the old limits that have kept you stuck. And that is exactly where transformation is born. Think of a seed planted in the ground. Before it can become a tree, it must break through its shell. That breaking is uncomfortable. It must push through the dirt, fight for light, endure storms, stretch roots deep into the earth. None of that process is easy, but without it, the tree would never exist. That is what life is doing with you. The challenges, the struggles, the moments where you feel pressure, they are not there to destroy you. They are there to transform you. They are breaking the shell of who you were so you can become who you are meant to be. Discomfort forces you to grow in ways that comfort never will. It teaches resilience when things don't go as planned. It teaches adaptability when you face unexpected changes. It teaches patience when the results take longer than you hoped. It teaches strength when the weight feels unbearable. These lessons cannot be learned in comfort. They can only be forged in the fire of discomfort. That is why the people who grow the most, the ones who achieve the most, the ones who live at the highest level are not the ones who avoid discomfort, but the ones who embrace it. When you look at the great achievers, the innovators, the leaders, you'll see a common thread. They leaned into discomfort. They didn't back away from the difficult path. They chose it. They understood that discomfort was a signal that they were on the edge of something greater. They understood that comfort would keep them ordinary, but discomfort would transform them into extraordinary. The difference between those who live average lives and those who create extraordinary ones is not talent. It is not luck. It is the willingness to embrace discomfort. Discomfort is where fear shows up, and fear is where courage is born. You cannot call yourself brave if you've never faced fear. You cannot call yourself strong if you've never been tested. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision to move forward despite it. And discomfort is the training ground where courage is built. Every time you step into discomfort, you're telling yourself that you are bigger than your fear, that you are stronger than your excuses, that you are willing to grow even when it hurts. The problem is society trains us to chase comfort. Advertisements sell it, schools encourage it, culture rewards it. But the life you are meant to live will never be found in the safe zone. It will be found in the moments when you dare to be uncomfortable, when you take the risk, when you face the rejection, when you push your body past its limits, when you test your mind against challenges you've never faced before. That is the soil where greatness grows. Discomfort doesn't just change what you do, it changes who you are. It rewires your brain, it reshapes your identity, it expands your vision of what is possible. Once you've faced discomfort and survived, you realize you are capable of so much more than you thought. You realize the limits you once believed in were illusions, walls built in your mind that crumbled the moment you stepped into discomfort. And once you've tasted that kind of growth, comfort feels like a prison. You can either choose the short-term pain of discomfort or the long-term pain of regret. One builds you, the other destroys you. One shapes you, the other diminishes you. The temporary struggle you feel in discomfort will pass, but the strength you gain will last forever. The regret of never daring, never trying, never growing will haunt you for a lifetime. That's the real cost of avoiding discomfort. The fire of transformation will never be lit in comfort. It is lit in the grind, in the challenge, in the sweat, in the tears, in the moments where you want to quit but decide to keep going. That is where you discover what you are truly made of. That is where you stop living like the average and start stepping into your power. Every breakthrough in history came from those who refused to be average, because average never changes the world. Average never creates revolutions. Average never inspires generations. Look back at the pages of history and you will see a pattern. It is never the ones who blended in that shifted humanity forward. It is the ones who stood out, the ones who thought differently, the ones who challenged what everyone else accepted as normal. Every invention, every movement, every leap in progress was born from someone who looked at the status quo and said, "This is not enough. There must be more. I refuse to settle for what is." The light bulb was not created by someone content with darkness. The airplane was not built by people satisfied with staying on the ground. The civil rights movements were not led by those who accepted injustice as the way things had to be. These breakthroughs came from men and women who were willing to risk ridicule, rejection, and even failure because they knew that average thinking could never produce extraordinary results. They were not driven by comfort. They were driven by vision. They were not fueled by fear. They were fueled by purpose. They stood alone at times. They faced resistance. They were misunderstood, but they held on because they knew that choosing to rise above average was the only way to create something that would outlast them. Average is the crowd, the masses, the collective voice that says, don't try, don't dream, don't go beyond what's safe. But breakthroughs never come from the crowd. They come from the courageous few who step away from it. History is filled with stories of those who were laughed at before they were celebrated, who were doubted before they were admired, who were rejected before they were remembered. The difference between them and everyone else was not intelligence alone. It was the decision to reject average. They refused to let the world's limits define their possibilities. When you study breakthroughs, you see a consistent pattern, the refusal to accept this is just how it is. Every innovator questioned, every leader challenged, every creator pushed the boundaries of what was considered possible. That questioning came with discomfort, that challenging came with risk, that pushing came with setbacks, but without that resistance, there would be no transformation. The average person sees an obstacle and stops. The one who creates breakthroughs sees the obstacle and thinks, how do I move through this? How do I climb over it? How do I turn this wall into a door? That is the mindset that shifts the course of history. Think about the breakthroughs in your own life, the moments where you changed, where you rose higher, where you became someone new. None of those moments came from doing what was average. They came from stretching yourself, from trying something different, from refusing to settle. Breakthroughs are not just historical, they are personal. Every time you refuse to be average, you create a breakthrough in your own story. And the truth is, the world doesn't just need historical breakthroughs, it needs personal ones. Because every person who breaks through their own limits, their own fears, their own excuses becomes a force of change for others. Average is contagious, but so is greatness. When someone decides to rise above, when someone dares to be different, it gives permission for others to do the same. Every breakthrough in history has not only created change in the moment, but has sparked a ripple effect that carries forward. One act of courage inspires another. One bold step ignites the next. That is how revolutions begin. That is how societies transform. That is how legacies are built. Refusing to be average means you stop living for approval, because approval lives in the comfort zone. Approval lives in doing what everyone else is doing. But history does not remember those who live for approval. It remembers those who live for impact. To create a breakthrough, you must be willing to be misunderstood. You must be willing to be doubted. You must be willing to stand alone when everyone else walks away. That is the price of greatness, but it is also the path to immortality, because breakthroughs echo long after the world has forgotten the names of those who chose average. Every major leap in science and technology, in human rights, in culture, in art, in innovation, has come from the relentless spirit of men and women who dared to go against the grain. They were told it couldn't be done. They were told it was impossible. They were told to stop trying, but instead they leaned in harder. The world progresses because someone somewhere refuses to accept that the way it is today is the way it must always be. And that same spirit is available to you. That same refusal to settle lives inside you. Breakthroughs are not reserved for the chosen few. They are created by those who choose not to be average. You don't need to be the smartest, the richest, the most connected. You need to be the one who is willing to keep going when others quit, willing to see possibilities when others see problems, willing to hold on to vision when others give in to doubt. That is how breakthroughs happen. That is how the impossible becomes possible. That is how history is written. Your identity shapes your destiny. Declare daily, I am not average, because what you believe about yourself determines how you show up in the world. Identity is the invisible script that runs your life. It is the filter through which you make decisions. It is the thermostat that sets the standard of what you will accept and what you will reject. If you see yourself as average, you will live an average life. If you believe you are ordinary, you will settle for ordinary results. But when you shift your identity, when you decide that you are not average, you raise your standards, you demand more from yourself, and your destiny begins to align with that new truth. Everything you do flows from who you believe you are. The person who says, I am not disciplined, will always struggle to build new habits. The person who says, I am not confident, will never step into opportunities that require boldness. But the moment you begin to declare a new identity, your actions begin to follow. If you wake up each morning and declare with certainty, I am not average, you are programming your mind to rise above mediocrity, to reject excuses, to embrace growth, to move with power instead of hesitation. Identity is not formed by chance. It is created by choice. Your destiny is not written by circumstances. It is written by the story you tell yourself about who you are. Some people never change because they never change their identity. They keep repeating the same limiting beliefs until they become cemented into their future. But the ones who rise, the ones who break cycles, the ones who achieve greatness are those who take control of their identity. They stop saying, I can't, and start saying, I will. They stop saying, I am not enough, and start saying, I am unstoppable. They stop labeling themselves as average and start declaring that they are extraordinary. When you declare, I am not average, you are not just speaking words, you are planting seeds. Every declaration begins to shape your subconscious mind, and your subconscious controls the majority of your actions. If you fill it with mediocrity, you will live in mediocrity. If you fill it with power, with strength, with certainty, you will rise to match those words. Declarations are not empty affirmations. They are commitments to a new identity. And identity is the foundation upon which destiny is built. Think of the people who have transformed their lives, the athletes who went from overlooked to world class, the leaders who rose from nothing to change the world, the entrepreneurs who turned failures into empires. None of them could have done it while identifying as average. They had to first decide who they were, and that decision became the compass for every action they took. When challenges came, their identity carried them through. When failures hit, their identity reminded them they were not finished. When doubts surrounded them, their identity gave them strength. It all began with the simple but powerful truth, I am not average. Identity creates standards, and standards create destiny. If your standard is average effort, you will get average results. If your standard is extraordinary effort, you will get extraordinary results. Your identity determines where that standard is set. This is why it is not enough to simply want success or desire change. You must first change who you are in your own eyes. Desire without identity leads to frustration, but identity aligned with vision creates unstoppable momentum. Every time you repeat, I am not average, you reinforce a higher standard. You start to notice when your actions don't match your declaration, and that awareness pushes you to rise higher. If you say, I am not average, but you act with laziness, your mind will demand alignment. If you say, I am not average, but you allow fear to stop you, your identity will challenge you to move. Over time, the words you speak and the actions you take merge into one, and that is when transformation becomes permanent. The world will try to give you labels. It will try to define you by your past, by your failures, by your circumstances. But identity is not what the world gives you. It is what you choose to declare. You can either accept the labels handed to you, or you can write your own. The most powerful people in history were those who refused to accept the world's definition of them. They chose a higher identity and lived into it until their destiny reflected it. Your future is shaped by the story you tell yourself daily. If that story is small, your future will be small. If that story is average, your future will be average. But if that story is powerful, limitless, extraordinary, then your future will expand to match it. Identity is the author of destiny, and every declaration is a line in the script of your life. That is why every day you must wake up and declare, I am not average, not once, not sometimes, but daily, because repetition creates belief, and belief creates reality. Your destiny is not waiting for chance. It is waiting for you to decide who you are. And when you decide with full certainty, when you claim with power that you are not average, you activate a new standard, a new path, a new future. Identity shapes destiny. And destiny is nothing more than the reflection of the standards you are willing to live by. The ones who choose to live as average will fade into history unnoticed, but the ones who decide to rise above average will create legacies that last for generations.